Hey guys, we're back for the detour and we're live. And John, I don't know why it is every time we go live, you're always looking at your phone. You know the process. Just look down the barrel. Be ready for when we hit that record button, mate.
I was looking down before you put me on. See, you can't help yourself, can you? Like that guy who put me up in the shop just the other day. He said, "Gee, that Dan loves to get get stuck into you, doesn't he?" I said, "Yeah, I know. He can't help himself."
And
Anyway.
just your phone on silent as well while I got you on the ropes, mate. We've got another big episode. Obviously, Tour of Turkey. Big talking point was Mark Cavendish winning 4 stages, but even bigger for us Aussies was Jay Vine. What a race, finishing second by a measly 1 second. But his story as well, Johnny, it's going to be a good ep, I suspect.
I know it's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to talking with Jay, who's I think you've got him in the waiting room right now, so we might as well bring him straight in. But it's a wonderful story of how he got to the big dance floor.
And Jay, you join us now live from Girona. Thanks for joining us on the detour, mate. How are you feeling after a massive week?
Yeah, pretty stoked with obviously how it all went down. Disappointing to miss out by 1 second, but we as a team, I think we gave everything we had. I certainly tried every trick in the book on that final stage after the bonus seconds were taken away. But looking back on it, it was probably the best way to start my career, really.
Was there a bit of chatter going around? Like, there's been a bit of press about winning the Zwift Academy challenge, and I think we've found this emergence of virtual racing. A lot of them go, "Oh, yeah, how's that going to transfer onto the road?" But the fact that you've got this result in your first race in Europe, I mean, it shows that the data is pretty much bang on. I mean, you're in really, really good form.
Yeah, I mean, I had some of these questions before as well. Like, how does virtual racing sort of transfer onto the road? And it's like it's virtual racing is not going to prepare you for world tour pro racing. The moving through the bunch, like you could be Primož Roglic and really burn so much energy just trying to move around the bunch inefficiently. So that sort of stuff you really do have to learn in real life. But using Zwift and all these tools as training tools to work out if athletes are talented enough to do the numbers is I think a really good quality in virtual platforms, because you can always teach someone to move through a bunch. You can always teach someone race tactics. I think, it's a really good scouting tool for those parts of the world that don't have exposure to European racing, like Asia, like Oceania, like Africa, like South America. I think there are a lot of hidden talents out there.
I agree with part of that. There's no doubt about the hidden talent, but I've seen people you'll never be able to teach how to go through the bunch correctly, mate. They just don't get it. But anyway, it's another story. But look, I'd love to talk to you in more detail about how the whole Zwift Academy thing happened and how you got onto the World Tour. But well, we just touched on Turkey, your first race with your new team. So. You must have been really nervous before the start of stage one.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, it was not only was it my first race with the team, it was my first race of the year. It was my first race in over 18 months in a bunch of over 50 guys, and like all this stuff. The first pro race, it's. First time in Turkey, it's a massive experience, and it was snowing, so the stage had to get postponed and then moved, and there's all these little things of racing around a city street circuit in Turkey for only 80 kilometers, so there was no real settle down period during the race. It was pretty much go the entire time. It was a new experience, but the team was really supportive. I had no expectations going into the actual overall event, which was really like pressure relieving, even though I sort of gave myself a bit of pressure to perform on stage 5. But yeah, I mean, once we were in the bunch, it was pretty surreal racing against guys that I don't ever watch on TV. That's for sure.
So it was getting lots of attention, the race, because one with Mark Cavendish finally getting a stage win and then continuing on. So everyone was watching it. But so just take us back to the start. So the team were, knowing it's your first race, when did they realise that you were going to be actually a contender for this?
I mean, so Christoph de Kegel had, agreed that it was a good idea to target stage 5. And, he'd sent me a message that morning going, look, you're in really good shape. You're basically going into stage 5 as good as you can be. I'd done some shorter efforts. I'd done some longer efforts during the first couple of stages, helping the team out in the finals and the starts, policing breakaways. And then stage 4, they basically just let me have a Rico day, rolling along for 4 hours at 170 watts. So that was a really good confidence boost that they had the faith in me to give me a day off ready for stage 5, which was really awesome. I think they were pretty confident that I was going to do something in that stage 5, because they used Jasper into the last 7 kilometers of that climb. He was there to win bunch sprint finishes, and obviously if he's going to be the only protected rider for the race, you'd be keeping him fresh for that day. So I'm pretty confident they thought I was going to do something special.
Was that purely based on data leading up to the race? Because I saw that you broke the record for the Roca Corba climb near Girona there?
Corba. Yeah.
Yeah, and was that enough for them to go, oh, geez, you're flying here? Or was it the data that led them to have the confidence going into Turkey?
I don't know what data did it for them, but it's like there's all these nuances. Like I did that Roca Corba climb not fresh. I had 3 days in the legs for that week, but it was basically only after 40 minutes of riding that I went and did that. This was going to be after 4 days of racing. I'd only ever raced 5 days in a row. So this was after 800 kilometers in the legs. And it was also at the end of 4 hours of racing. So we hit that climb with 4 hours in the legs. I think like 3,400 calories burnt for that day. So, and it was at altitude as well, which I'd never experienced. So, all these little nuances combined, anything could have gone wrong. So, yeah.
And what was the reaction after that stage?
From who, really? Like, I think the team was obviously stoked, but sort of like, yep, okay, this is just all confirmation, ticking boxes sort of thing. But I mean, from the rest of the world, it's been pretty incredible. Like, who's this guy? Where's he come from? And I think Bree, my wife, was like on the edge of her seat the entire climb. So I think she burnt just as many calories as me.
That's good. So take us through to that. So you're 4 seconds down. Yep. And then on the penultimate day, you managed to get that 3 seconds, or 3 of those 4 seconds back in an intermediate sprint. Take us through how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, the team essentially, basically from the meeting after stage 5, we were always looking to move up on GC. It was going to be hard to do it, and we only had a team of 4 at that point, so we couldn't really team attack or anything like that. We had to be sneaky. So the stage 6, we came within 50 meters. It wasn't shown on the broadcast, but we came within 50 meters of getting bonus seconds on stage 6. The breakaway was sort of coming back really quickly as the sprint point approached, and it was caught about 100 meters after the sprint point, and we missed it by about 5 seconds. The 3 riders soaked them up, and then 5 seconds later, our trio rolled across the sprint points. So, but no one responded from the peloton when we did that. So we're like, oh, we might not be able to get away with that tomorrow. And we know there's crosswinds coming in stage 7. So the bunch will be really nervous heading into that sprint point. You know, we'll try it again. We'll try this sneak attack sort of thing again. And once again, no one really responded. We got within 300, 400 meters of the bonus points, and you can see Lionel in the coverage sort of like looking like, did we miss something? Is there someone else up the road? Like, are we missing nothing? And as we cross the time bonuses, I'm hearing through the radio Marcel going, no one reacted. Like, did we miss something? And Frederick's like, no, we definitely pretty sure we got the time. So yeah, it was pretty funny that no one thought that anyone was going to try and move up on GC, but
yeah. And of course, 1 second. So you're 1 second down, and you had a plan to try and split it at the finish to get that gap. But take us through the unfortunate part of that.
Yeah, I mean the bonus seconds on the final day should have theoretically been the easiest, but a lot can happen in 23Ks, and Delco weren't having any of it. They started sending attacks up the road from the flag drop, and with the only people really being interested in those bonus seconds being us and Delco, it was basically 5 versus 4, and it wasn't actually 5 versus 4. It was 5 versus 4 plus the rest of the peloton trying to form breakaways. So we used a lot of energy trying to keep it all controlled. Ended up not being able to control it with 2 kilometers to go. 2 riders went up the road, and when I tried to attack out of the peloton with like 800 meters to go, I ended up falling short by 100 meters, and Jasper had to outsprint Cav for the last green jersey points. So didn't sort of go away there. So they weren't going to give it up without a fight. Fair enough. And the next decision was, okay, we can either start trying to split the race by trying to get in moves, which we did for the next probably 100 kilometers. It didn't settle down for ages, like 2.5 hours of the bike race. It was just flat out. I think it was the fastest stage of the race, 47 k's an hour average. So after that all didn't work. The final opportunity was going for splits in the finish, and sort of hoping that there wouldn't be mechanicals or crashes in the last 3Ks to neutralize the time. Turns out I was the one that crashed in the last 3Ks. And then after the race, we found out Diaz flatted in the last kilometer. So even if there was splits, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. So all I can say is we gave it everything we had. We tried every trick in the book and just came up short.
How did you find the level, Jay? You said earlier that it was your first race in 18 months, but was it harder than what you expected, or were you going better than what you expected?
I mean, I'm obviously going a lot better than I was at Sun Tour last year, but I mean, I think the level obviously is higher. There's a lot more guys on the same level, and there's a lot more riders in the bunch, and the teams, I think, operate more as teams at this level. Obviously, at the lower levels, you've still got a lot of individuals racing as individuals that are sort of just wearing the same jersey. So you can sort of play people off against each other. Whereas there's no way of outriding a team solo on parkours like that. Obviously, on the Al-Mali climb, it was pretty straightforward. Whoever had the watts in the finish was going to win. But on rolly parkours like this, and the distances that we're racing, you need strong teams behind you. So I think, I found a really good level to go into at for my first pro race, that's for sure.
Well, Turkey's been a good pathway for a lot of emerging riders. I remember Adam Yates won it, I think, in 2014. I reckon that would have been his first year with the team. So it's a good litmus test for races, obviously, moving forward. Now, we said earlier as well, the big talk was Cavendish winning 4 stages, your teammate Jasper won 2. What was it like racing with the likes of, arguably the best ever sprinter we've seen?
Yeah, really annoying for the first 3 wins because we were so close 3 times. And, every afternoon we'd go into a team meeting with, a couple of mistakes that we didn't make the same mistakes twice. We just made new ones. So, the running joke was we just make all our mistakes tomorrow, and then that way the following day we don't make the same mistakes again, and we can get a win out of this. And when you've got Cavendish in the wheel, there's no room for error. Like it's you've got to be perfect or he's going to come past you. Just his sprinting style, he's done it 150 wins. You've got to be perfect. So it was interesting being involved in a sprint lead out in my first pro race with the team and taking on the added pressure of we have to deliver wins. Like I've never experienced that before. So sort of coming into a team not as the underdog was really a new experience, and it just made me want to strive to do my job as best as I could.
And with the team, how have you found your teammates so far?
Yeah, really good. I was learning as much as I could every day. Stuff like not stopping on the top of a climb to take a piss because at this level, riders being dropped, they may blockade the road and will barrage the road, and you'll never get back on. Stuff like that wouldn't have even occurred to me. So little tips like that, learning how to move through the peloton as a group, positioning near the front of the race for crosswinds, all those sort of things. You hear on TV, you must be at the front for crosswinds, but it's easier said than done. And, you can't always be at the front for every kilometre of the bike race. So picking your moments and when to move up through the bunch. The Belgians are so good at picking the moment to, all right, the peloton's about to slow down because it's accordion together. I'm going to, instead of braking, use this momentum to go forward right now and gain 30 positions without using any energy. They're so good at that. So trying to learn that and keep my head up as well, looking forward, basically riding your bike about 3 inches from people all around you is just automatic for these guys. Actually looking around and the race tactics is what they're all thinking about. So, yeah.
And obviously, you texting John? That is just bloody rude.
No, I wasn't texting, Dan. I turned my phone back on.
I want to ask you about this guy, Matthew Van der Poel. Is obviously a superstar on your team. He's still, to my opinion, has the best win pose, as you see there from Torino. Have you had a chance to speak to Matthew at all?
No, I haven't met any of the other guys yet. I was stuck in Australia sorting out visa processes for January, February, and didn't arrive till March. So all the training camps were done, and because of lockdowns in Spain, it's a pain in the ass to try and leave the country to then come back when you're not going away on business. So, I didn't meet anyone on the team except for Alex Krieger, who'd come to Girona for a training camp earlier in March until the actual race. So,
well, it's a shame there's COVID on at the moment, because I used to just wing it. Whenever I lived in Girona, I wouldn't get any of the paperwork, mate. Used to be like, yeah, I'm just on holidays. When your 3 months come up, get your stamps. Don't go into the hotspot airports. But I reckon they'd all be red hot at the moment now. Now, the journey to get the contract is quite incredible. Do you want to explain to people what actually happened with the Zwift Academy challenge and how did you get the contract with Alpecin?
Yeah, so the Zwift Academy for the last 3 years has all been under 23s only. So, you could be, or under 23 and try and get a continental feeder team contract with, I think it was BMC or Team Dimension Data, that's the one. And that was essentially ruled me out. When I first started road cycling, I was 22, but I was barely at a state level cyclist. So I didn't even bother signing up for the Zwift Academy because I knew I wasn't competitive at all. After that, I was ineligible. So I was trying to make my way through the classic Australian cycles of trying to get on the best team I could and try and get myself as many UCI starts, possibly in Asia, Oceania, and maybe, if I was lucky, a European race or two. But by the time I was ready for that sort of stuff, COVID hit. So 2020 was Herald Sun Tour, 5th overall, and then nothing. So we had to reevaluate. Okay, well, we've got this Zwift platform. Let's try and use that as much as we can, and maybe I can get on a continental team in Europe. But then the further on from that, the hard bit was trying to get out of Australia. You've got to have a special exemption that's usually only granted to people who have employment, and continental cyclists are not employed. They're classified as amateurs under the Australian government rules. So trying to get out of the country for that was going to be pretty hard as well. Zwift Academy announced that they were opening up the competition to elites in August or something. And that was when Brie, my wife, and I decided that, this is our only chance. Anything else that comes up throughout the year, be it NRS, Nationals in January, all that is secondary, because your best chance of going pro in the next 3 years is probably going to be Zwift Academy. So me and my coach talked about peaking for literally every single little event they had. I think it was 12 workouts across 8 weeks of the academy. And yeah, we basically used each workout as a race peaking event, tape a recovery day with some openers the day before. And, we didn't even do them in order. We lined them up so that each day I'd have the best form for that particular workout.
And so once you win that challenge, that was the guarantee to get the start you've got now.
Yeah. So then there was a finals week in late December. So yeah, we're already in December now when the finals are happening. Most contracts have been sorted months ago, back in August, September. The rest of my current teammates were actually on a training camp at the time that the finals were going on. So I missed all the pre-season training camps. They went on a second training camp in January, which I also missed because COVID. And yeah, there was a finals week for about 5 days, maybe 6 days. Everyone was in different parts of the world. Everyone was in their own Airbnbs with their own videographer. We did a couple of challenges. My favorite challenge of the whole lot was they sent us out for a 3-hour ride. I think we had to average 0.65 intensity factor, and then come back to the Airbnb and immediately jump on the indoor trainer and do a scaled workout. So they basically took your FTP from a ramp test that you'd done the previous day, and they recalculated the values of Matthew Van Der Poel's Amstel Gold race win for the last hour. So they scaled all his numbers and watts per kilo, and you had to do his efforts for the last hour of Amstel Gold. So it was basically you had to do, I think I averaged an intensity factor of like 9.5. Yeah, 0.95 for the 58 minutes after already doing the 2 hours of, or the 3 hours of endurance. And the scary thing is that still doesn't even compare to what he did, because obviously that was only 3 hours of bike racing, whereas Amstel was, I think, 5 or something.
Yeah.
That's
Amazing.
nuts.
Yeah.
Iffy?
Yeah. Okay. It was great to see those photos pop up that you just put up before, because it took me back to that Sun Tour, which is, the beginning of 2020. Yeah, that's the shot there. And that was after the stage up at Mount Buller. So I remember you'd ridden pretty well up Falls Creek 2 days before. So it's two. You in that little group about a minute. There's a couple of you about a minute down, but this was really impressive. I remember, you were only like a handful of seconds behind those two, and they're both World Tour riders now. Jai and Sebastian, and I think you were only about 9 seconds behind them. So you really were right in the mix. I was very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, we learned a lot from that race. There's just silly stuff like on Falls Creek. It was a brand new head unit that I had on that day, and power meter was a pedal-based power meter, and I'd had the wrong crank length set. So we're riding up Falls Creek for over an hour, and I'm looking at my numbers like, these are a bit low. I reckon if I tack here, the group's fairly controlled. We're sort of going easy. Lachlan Morton's up the road. If I bridge across to him, I reckon I got a chance of doing something on this day. Turns out we'd been riding threshold for over an hour, and I was too focused on numbers at that point. The Sunweb ramped it up, and I was caught like two kilometers later and dropped pretty promptly after that and rolled in for 8th. So we decided that, okay, let's be a bit smarter here and wait as long as we can on the Buller climb. And yeah, it turns out waiting was the best tactic. And I was positioned not in the ideal position when Seb attacked on that climb, but I'm pretty happy with the 3rd place on that stage. It was pretty surreal racing with the Yates brothers and the rest of the guys that were there.
Yeah, impressive.
Did you feel that you learned a lot about yourself having to deal with the setbacks of COVID? Obviously, you had good form, and then the racing stopped. But to look back now and what you've done mentally, going, okay, well, I'm going to find an opportunity somewhere else, and you did, and here you are now. Has that really built this sort of mental resilience, do you think?
I think I probably always had a bit of mental resilience, coming from mountain biking, the marathon mountain biking side of things. You don't race really with other people. A lot of the marathon racing, it's very mentally challenging because you're pretty much solo most of it. When I was marathon racing, it was essentially just the Brendan Johnson show, who he'd ride away from the entire group of the rest of the contenders in the first 20 kilometers, and it'd just be who's going to make up the podium behind him for the remainder 80 kilometers. So, and in races that long, so 4.5 hours, you always have down spots, and being able to push through those, knowing that everyone's going through that, sort of defines how you're going and how you're going to end up in the end. So the mountain biking, I think, or that aspect of the mountain biking really, really helped, mentally prepare for that sort of, challenge.
I noticed that you always mentioning the data, and of course when you're doing marathon mountain biking, so a lot of solo stuff. Of course, you've got not much else to go by, but it's interesting to hear you also talk about the tactics in a bike race. So where does the data have to be stopped to be looked at and look at the situation of the actual tactics of the race?
Well, interesting you say that. So because of my experiences at Sun Tour, being too focused on the data, I sort of learnt, okay, I can't always just be focused on my computer. I came into the sport relatively late. I'm sort of in that age of, okay, everything's numbers focused. Percentages is how the world works. But me and my coach, we really, really, really worked on in training heading into Turkey, not looking at the computer half as much as we were, and pacing, most of my efforts off RPE feel, knowing that the altitude on stage 5 was going to really mess with the numbers. And at that point in the race, you really can't just ride to a number. You've got to fight for position. You've got to go with moves, go with surges, and once again with the altitude at 1,800 meters, just because your watts are 15% lower does not mean that you should be pushing harder, because you'll blow up pretty quickly.
Do you still want to ride virtual races throughout the year, or now that you're over in Girona, is it all about the road?
I'm still keen to do some indoor racing. The issue is going to be whether it fits around the training schedule. So the intensity that you need for indoor racing, you just can't. It'll almost ruin your week of training, especially if you've got back-to-back tours coming up. You can't be putting too much intensity in. Otherwise, you'll ruin your season. That, coupled with the Premier League that's going on right now, you have to be in a Zwift team already to be able to participate in those. The Zwift Worlds is something that I'm going to be looking into. Hopefully, if it's in the December region again. I think that'll be a good warm up, essentially, for the Nationals running in January, if they put it back to the original time slot.
Well, there's talk that it might be in the Olympic Games down the track, because we've had Michael Rogers on the show who's really leading the virtual racing side of things for the UCI, but the sky seems like it's the limit. I mean, are you still dead against it, John, given that you're old school?
I was never dead against it. I just don't understand it well enough, actually. So I shouldn't knock anything that you don't know much about it. So even I'm fascinated just listening to you talk about the whole Zwift Academy, because it's just something I don't know enough about. So yeah, you tipped me into that one, Dan, but I'm not going to go any further with that one. Hey, it's a new world out there. Old farts like me, I suppose, have to start getting on the coattails of it.
I like to think of it as like it's a different discipline. If not everyone likes cyclocross racing, not everyone likes trials, 20-inch trials, MTB. I don't know. It's not racing, but that competition. Not everyone likes every sort of discipline. So, there's going to be a bit of crossover between road cycling and indoor Zwift racing. But I think the coolest part of it is when you get guys who, are racing the Tour de France that, hop into Zwift racing, and they're just doing their training, and, you can take the racer off the road, but they still want to win on the indoor trainer. So, it's the competitiveness is always still there, and Zwift racers know the game, and they quite often can beat a seasoned European pro just by knowing the nuances.
You mentioned cyclocross earlier. Your team's obviously known for cyclocross, and we had Heinrich Hausler on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how beneficial that was for his early season form. Is it something that you'd want to dip your toe in?
Possibly. The amount of stuff that I want to do is too much for my first season, that's for sure. So my goals for the end of the year are going to be hopefully starting Lombardia. That's a big goal of mine. And obviously that being in October, still got to have an end of year break, and I'm really wanting to have a good run at Nationals for next year, in January, which means there's not going to be much of a break there. How much intensity can I put in to a December block? And then you've also got to factor in, am I going to be in Australia or am I going to be doing a European camp over here with the team? So there's, a bit too much to sort of look at right now.
So you've moved into Girona. What made you choose Girona to base yourself?
Mainly the fact that there's so many other Aussie cyclists here. There are a bunch of them moved up to Andorra basically as soon as I got here, but we'll leave that on the side. Hopefully it wasn't because I was coming.
Bad breath.
But it seems to be the place to be. All the English speaking riders sort of moved to this part of Spain, and I'd spoken to Jimmy Whelan about what he thought of the place, and he said that the riding's great, the weather's great, and the roads are great. I'm yet to be abused. I think I've done 2,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers on these roads so far, and I haven't been abused once, which, most people riding in Sydney, Canberra, and Melbourne, they'd laugh at you if you told them that.
Well, it would make a big difference, that expat community, particularly, we've talked a bit about, Aussies that have had to go to Europe and how much harder it is compared to, people that grew up in the UK or whatever. You've only just recently arrived, but how have you found the transition? Does it feel a bit weird given that we still are in the middle of this pandemic and your family are back home in Australia?
Well, not super weird. Like, Bree, this is the first time Bree and I have lived alone together. But I moved out of home when I was 18. And we saw our parents. My parents moved away from Canberra pretty promptly after that because my dad was in the military. So I'd see my parents maybe once or twice a year. So that's not really different. It's probably a big thing for Bree. She's basically never lived outside of Canberra, her hometown. She'd never been overseas until basically jumping on a plane and moving over. I guess the good thing about COVID was the fact that we got to have an entire row of economy class seats to lie down on and sleep on the plane.
Almost like business.
Yeah. But the actual transition, the weirdest part is some people speak English here well enough to get by, and then others completely do not understand a word you're saying. So I can only imagine how hard it would have been, 15 years ago before the invention of the iPhone, trying to translate stuff without the help of Google Translate and stuff like that. Would have been incredibly hard. But you can get away with a lot of stuff in Girona without knowing too much Spanish. So the transition hasn't been too hard.
The secret is find a mate that can speak Catalan and Spanish and just hang out with them and let them do all the grunt work. That's what I did. I could barely order 3 beers at the end of it, but anyway, you move on.
So I was going to say, what's your immediate future? What's your calendar of races coming up?
With the COVID and the cancellations and stuff, it's pretty hard. The team's having to juggle 30 other guys as race calendars. So we're still in talks about what my future holds. I can't do any World Tour races just yet. I'm actually really hoping that the anti-doping agencies sort of start knocking on my door a bit more. For the biological passport stuff. So when I first got to Girona, I was here 4 days, I think, and then they rocked up at my door to take some blood passport stuff, and really hoping they rock up again so that I can do some World Tour races. But
okay.
Yeah. So there's a requirement for that in the UCI rules. So still waiting for that to happen. But I think I'll be staying at the pro level for a little bit. Christophe de Kegel really wants to wants to do right by me and the Zwift guys to develop me. They're not just trying to, fulfill the contract and just churn me out and then spit me out on the side after 1 year and that be that. So they're really trying to give me as much experience in races that complement my talents, and not just, put me in Ghent Wevelgem as my first race, when I first got to Europe in March. I think it's going to be a good year, but it's going to start off a bit slow.
And you mentioned Lombardia before. What is it about that race that you really love?
It was the first classic that I watched. Dan Martin, he was sort of a new rider to me. I think he hadn't done that well in the Tour de France, but in years after that, he'd been really active and really aggressive, and that never die attitude of the way he races in the Grand Tours is pretty special. But I watched Lombardia in 2014 when I first got into cycling, and it's just so cool to see Grand Tour riders going up against classic specialists. You've got the likes of Phil Gill winning it twice, but then you've also got guys like Nibali winning it twice, Joaquin Rodriguez winning it twice. It's the list of names on that podium is...
Esteban Chavez won it, and you wouldn't have expected him to...
Esteban won it in a sprint. It's crazy.
That was nuts. We've got a fan comment. Of course, it's Wendy Superfan. Hi, Dan. Hi, John. Hi, Jay. Awesome watching you race up to second on GC. Woohoo. So good on you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
So if we were to check in with you in, say, 5 years' time, what would be ultimate where you're at? I mean, what is the longer term goals for your career, mate?
I mean, I want to give myself some reasonable goals, but I don't want to be like super outlandish. I think one of my big goals would be to have stood on the podium of Lombardia. I want to have a green and gold jersey at a national championship, whether that be in the time trial or the road race. And I really want to represent Australia at Wollongong. Like that's a big thing for me in 2022. So I think if I'm able to complete those three things, I'll be stoked,
That's great.
Sounds like a good plan, mate. Sounds like a good plan.
Well, I'll start hooking you up with George Bennett as a Girona and Andorra rider. I think he ran second, didn't he, at Lombardia last year? You could pick his brain. He'll give you some tips. And Sam Bewley's another good one you can go training with there. He's good for event session. You can get a lot of stuff off your chest. Yeah. But there's definitely a good network of riders out there. Iffy, anything you want to add before we let Jay go and get to your sponsors' scripts?
Well, I didn't understand that you wouldn't be able to ride pro events until you get more testing. So I didn't realise that system. So you were able to ride Turkey because it wasn't actually pro tour. Is that how it worked?
Yeah. So the actual world tour designation requires more samples to be taken.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they don't do blood samples during race events. So they tested me, but they didn't take blood at Turkey. So it's like, are you guys taking blood? Yeah? No? Oh, okay.
So that's interesting. So how many tests do you have to do before we go able to race?
I don't know. I think it's 3. Some people say it's 6. So we'll have to wait and see. And obviously they can't take them, day after day because there's nothing much is going to change. So it could be a few months. It could be a few weeks. I'm not sure.
Oh, mate. You've always got Zwift, mate. You can always come back to that. A couple more comments before we let you go. T. Kingo says, surely victory in the Bay Crit should be top of the list. And Neil Phillips says, well done, Jay. Best of luck. for the future. So, yeah, no, it's fantastic to have you on the show, mate. You're a budding young superstar of the future for sure, and I'm sure you're going to tick a few of those bucket lists off over the following years, definitely. So, really appreciate you being on the show, buddy.
Cheers. Just a thing on that Bay Crits thing. I don't think I'm suited to that sort of racing. I mean, if you saw my sneak attack on stage 7, Gasper didn't even get out of the saddle to follow my wheel, and I was trying to get. And then he's rubbing his brakes as we cross that bonus second line. So
you're going to do virtual Bay Crits anyway, Johnny, eh?
You might have trouble on the hot dog, but the circuit up in the gardens, you'd go right up because it's a nice little hill, and I could just see you going whack up over that hill. No worries, mate.
Yeah.
All good.
Well, thanks for joining us, mate, and all the best in the near future.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Johnny, mate. Great stuff.
Jay Vine, one absolute legend. Now, Johnny, time to get through your sponsors' plugs, mate. You want to kick things off with Let's Go Motorhomes?
Yep. There it is. Look at it. Beautiful. Let's Go Motorhomes. Why not holiday in Australia's best motorhomes and campers? They love helping people have incredible holidays. So as one of Australia's leading rental companies, they have vehicles to suit all types of travellers for all kinds of adventures. And you be sure they'll go the extra mile to make your road trip the best time ever. So just give Andrew in there a call. He's the boss, and he will plan your whole holiday. So you just have an area you want to go to, you mention it to Andrew, and he'll set the whole thing up. As I say, plan is what they're all about. But and finally, they're all Jayco camper vans, so you wouldn't believe it, would you?
Yeah. And speaking of Jayco, get down and get yourself a Jayco if you need one.
Well, I mean, we always say, the biggest caravan manufacturer in Australia, 45 years of experience and history. Great value for money. Jayco RVs are designed and built to give you years of enjoyment. It's no wonder that 1 in every 2 new RVs on Australian roads is a Jayco. Find your freedom today. And with 29 dealers across the country, you'll find one close by. So have a chat to your local dealer and work out the best RV for your next great escape.
And Mitchelton Wines, Johnny.
Well, I've got that spiel here somewhere. There it is. Yeah, the funny thing is I jumped off and I got the Google Chrome. Here we go. I'm back. I lost it.
Okay.
Technology. It's a wonderful thing. One of Australia's favourite wineries and a place of escape. Experience the history, the beauty and the serenity of the Goulburn Valley at your own pace. Look over the vineyards from the iconic tower and staying in their magnificent new hotel, relaxing by that beautiful pool, have a look at there, recharging in the day spa, exploring their seasonal menu at the Muse restaurant, or stopping by the Providor and touring in the cellars, and of course, tasting their signature wines. You can recharge by the day and relax by night. Escape to a place of modern comfort and timeless beauty. And look at that beautiful bottle of some Massan. Yeah. And Mitchell's become renowned as an amazing venue for weddings and then that's special functions. So they offer unique spaces so you can a wedding outside overlooking the beautiful Goulburn River or inside underneath the tower. Just amazing. And of course, there it is, the amazing Aboriginal art gallery down in the cellars. It's the largest privately owned Aboriginal art gallery in the world, and it is staggering. You just see some of the quality paintings in there. And there it is, my old favourite, the $10,000 Land Cruiser with a €5.5 million paint job.
It's back. I think that's an all-time high. I think we've broken records, folks. Here's a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. but not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our great mates at Bike Exchange. Now, big weekend of racing, Iffy, Liège, Bastogne-Liège on Sunday, is it?
Yeah, so we had Flèche Wallonne just finished yesterday, which is an amazing race, finishes on the top of the Meurdoy, and two fantastic races. But the women, Anna van der Breggen, seven in a row. Seven. Yeah, that's that many. Yeah.
It's funny that climb, because there's certain riders that it just suits them. I remember Albacini with the Greeners. Every year he'd always be thereabouts, and obviously Valverde and Alaphilippe won in the men's overnight. But
he did. Riders, great win, and Roglic hit him hard, hit him early, but Alaphilippe shows he's back on form. But gee, how good is Valverde? He turns 41 this weekend, 41, and he was right there. He was supposed to be hanging the wheels up. He was doing the Olympics, and it was going to be his last year. He's suddenly saying, I actually don't feel 41. I think I might go on. And why wouldn't he?
Exactly. It's the opposite of this young talent emerging. Like some of these guys, half his age. Like, it's incredible.
Well, it's the one thing I was going to say to young Jay, but he's 25, but he's just bursting onto the European scene. In the old days, they would have said, oh, he's just a youngster, will help him along. He's almost an old codger. Now, 20 and 21-year-olds are dominating the racing. But I think I really like his style. He's not overawed by it all. To actually make that decision with your wife, say, you know what, we can do this. Let's really give this Zwift full effort. He really calculated it. He gets over there, rides into Tour of Turkey against Cav and all these stars with teammates he's never even met before, and he's in the pointy end. So I think he's got a big future.
It's a great example of, like, if you've got focus and drive and you're prepared to do the work, it's going to take you there. A lot of people just go, oh, nah, it's probably not going to happen, don't bother, or whatever. But if you do actually go for it, I mean, the doors will open up. And that's why when you hear the bucket list and goals, you're like, yeah, it's going to happen. It will happen.
It reminds me of you and me, Dan.
Oh, yeah, when we pitched the doco idea back in 2005. And here we are, Johnny. The detour still lives.
We're still going, mate.
Yeah. As we always say, if you want to get behind the show, youtube.com/the Detour Podcast. Tick on subscribe and notifications. We're going to be back. We'll have to obviously recap Liège, and we've got some big guests lined up. But also, when the Giro starts, we're planning to go live every stage like we used to. So we'll just have a set time, go for it. Johnny will be 5 minutes late, but that'll be fine. But we'll be every night for the Giro. It's going to be a lot of fun. Anything you want to add, John? All good?
All good, Daniel. Yes.
All right.
You're a superstar, mate.
Thanks, mate. We'll see you again on the next episode of the Detour.
This is the winning ride of the Tour de France.